Hello and welcome to Skill Techathon. So we'll be solving three questions. First one is generating a sequence of numbers. So we are going to generate a sequence of numbers between 1 and 10 using Recursive CTE. We'll also look into how to generate a sequence of even numbers and odd numbers as well. Second, we are going to look into generate a series of dates. So we are going to generate a list of dates between two given dates. And also we are going to look into how to calculate factorial using Recursive CTE. So let's go to SQL and check how we can do it. Okay, let's now solve the first question. So first question is generate a sequence of numbers. And the question is we need to generate a sequence of numbers from 1 to 10. So first we need to write the recursive clause. So let me show you the syntax once again. The syntax is with recursive. Then we need to provide the CTE name, columns. It's optional. Then we need to write as, then the first anchor query we need to write, then union all. After that, we need to write the recursive query with a where clause. Then from the CTE, we are going to extract the values. So let's start with this syntax. Let's start. So first, we need to write with recursive. Let's name this recursive query as number as. Okay. Now let's write the anchor query. Okay, let me name it as anchor query. Anchor query. So it will be understandable in a more better way. So anchor query, select one as num, union all. Okay, we need to write U here, union all. Now we need to increment the values by 1. So we are selecting 1 as the first value in anchor query. Now in recursive query, we'll increase it by +1 again and again in the repetitive loop. So next one is recursive part, right? So recursive query part. Select num +1. So as I explained earlier, so this recursive query will take values from this CTE, this anchor query part, right? So we name this CTE as numbers. So from you're going to write numbers where now we need to write the termination condition on which point our recursive query should stop the iteration. So where num less than 10. So this is our termination condition. Now let's get these values, select start from numbers. Now let's run this query. Okay, there is an error. Okay, there is a spelling mistake here. Okay, it's done. Now let's run this again. Okay, see, we got the values from 1 till 10. Now let me explain this whole query part by part. So what happening here is the with recursive clause allows the definition of a recursive common table expression. Now a recursive CTE has two parts, anchor query and recursive query. Now in this anchor query, we are providing the base case, which provides the initial value for the recursion. Now in the recursive query, that is the iterative step that builds on the result of the previous iteration and references the CTE cell. Together, the anchor query and the recursive query generates a sequence of rows by repeatedly applying the recursive logic until a termination condition is met, which is written in the where clause. Now this anchor query part, select 1 as num. This is the best case of the recursion. It produces the first row in the sequence with the value 1 in the column named num. Now at this stage, the number CTE contains is 1. Then comes the recursive query part. So the recursive query references the number itself in the CTE. So it takes the most recent value from numbers, which is 1, then adds 1 to it. This generates the next number in the sequence. Now, this iteration continues until the value of num is less than 10. The when num less than 10 clause ensures the recursion stops when the number reaches 10. Without this condition, the recursion would continue indefinitely, causing an error. So we need to make sure whatever the condition we are putting in the where clause, it meets at one time and gets stopped. Now this union all, what it does is it combines the result of the anchor query and the recursive query. And union all returns all rows, including duplicates, if any. This is necessary for generating sequential numbers. The recursive query is repeatedly applied to the output of the previous iteration until the termination condition is met. Now in the final query we wrote select star from numbers. This retrieves all rows generated by the recursive CTE. By the end of recursion, the number CTE contains a sequence of numbers from 1 to 10. This is how it's working. Okay. Now suppose you want only the even values. Suppose even values from 1 to 10. What we can do is we can modify this query a little and we'll get the output. Okay, let's try this. Okay, suppose generate a sequence of even numbers from 1 to 10. Okay, now what we are going to do is let's copy this query. We'll make a slight change in the query. So let's start with 2. So 2 is the first even number. So here also we are going to write num plus 2. So 2 will be the first value, then 2 plus 2, 4 will be the first value. Then until the number is less than 10, it will repeat. Okay. Now let's run this query. See, we got all the values, even numbers from 1 to 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. In the same way, we can get the odd values as well. This is very simple. Suppose we want odd values. Let's write it odd here. So the first odd value is 1. Okay. So this num plus 2, let it remain as it is because 1 plus 2 is 3. Then 3 plus 2 will be 5. 5 plus 2 will be 7. 7 plus 2 will be 9. Like that it will work. Okay. Let's run this query. Now let's check our output. See, we got 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. This is how it works. Okay. Now let's look into the next question. So the next question is, we need to generate a series of dates between two given dates, which is 15th December 2024 and 10th January 2025. So we need to generate all the dates between 15th December 2024 till 10th January 2025 using recursive CTE. Okay, so let's start with recursive. Let's name our CTE as date underscore series as bracket. So first we are going to write our anchor query. Let me write here anchor query. So our anchor query will be select. So our given date is 15th December 2024, right? Select this one. So now we are going to convert this into date data type. Okay, this is a string. We are going to convert it into date and name it as date underscore value. Okay. Then union all. Now we are going to write our recursive query part. Recursive query. So now in recursive query, we are going to increment the date by 1. So select. So we are going to use this date value to increment. So select date value plus interval 1 day from the CTE date series. Let's copy this where this date value is less than is 10th January 2025. Okay, let's make this as date data type as well. So date, colon, date. So this is our termination condition. Now let's query the result, select date value, date series. Okay, now let's run this query. Okay, we are getting an error here. So the error is recursive query date series column 1 has the type date in non-recursive term, but the type timestamp without the time zone overall. Okay, so we are getting an error here because of this part. Okay, so here we have directly mentioned it as a date data type in the where clause as well. However, here it is calculating as a time zone data type. So we need to convert this into date as well. So let's do that. Okay, select, let's put all of this, sorry, this part. Let's put all of this inside a bracket and convert this into date data type. Okay, now let's run this. This should work. Okay, it's working. So we got a series of date. Okay, there are too many values. Okay, see from 15 December, we got 16, 17, 18, 19 till 10th January 2025. So this is how you can generate a sequence of date using recursive query. You can also use order by clause here. So order by date value. So this is in ascending order. Let's make it descending. Let's run this query. See, we got this in descending order, the output. From 10th January it's starting and ending at 15th December. So this is how we can do that. Now, how this is working is, so this is the recursive clause part. So where we are naming a city as date series. In the anchor query, we are selecting the date, first date from which our iteration should start. So this is 15 December and we are converting this into date data type and naming it as date underscore value. So in the recursive query part, we are increasing this date value by 1 day. So the interval is 1 day. Then we are converting this into date data type as well. Now in the where clause, we gave the condition that this date value should be less than 10th January 2025. Until then, this condition should met and the recursive query should iterate. Then we used a select clause. So date value from the city date series. Then we ordered it by descending order. We can order it by ascending as well. Now, if you want, you can get the alternate days as well. Just increase it by 2, you'll get alternate days. So suppose we want the alternate days between 15th December 2024 till 10 January. So we change the interval to 2 days. Now let's run this query. See, we got the alternate days, 10 January, 8 January, 6 January, like that. So we can do like that as well. So we can do many modifications based on our need. However, this is the query to get the list of dates between two given dates. Okay, now let's move to the next question. So the third question is compute the factorial of a number 5 using a recursive CTE. Okay, let's write this. So first we need to write the recursive clause with recursive. Let's name it as factorial as the first we are going to write our anchor query. Select 1 as n, comma 1 as factorial. Okay, then union all. Then we are going to write our recursive query. Select n plus 1, comma factorial. So we are going to multiply it with n plus 1. Okay, there might be an issue because we are naming it as 1 as factorial as well, T as factorial as well. So let's change it to factorial underscore CT. So it will be better understandable. So we want the city, factorial city, now where the condition is n less than 5 because we want the factorial of a number 5. Okay. Now select n comma factorial from factorial underscore city. Now let's run this query. Now we got the factorial of 5 is 120. Okay. So how factorial is calculated? Suppose the factorial of 5 will be 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Right. So 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 will be 120. Or otherwise 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 to 5. So here we are getting, see, factorial of 1 is 1, factorial of 2 is 2, factorial of 3 is 6 because 3 into 2 into 1 it's 6. Factorial of 4 is 24, 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Then factorial of 5 is 120. Okay. Now let's understand this query. So this anchor query, it provides the initial value. So the base for the recursion, which starts with 1 for n, then 1 for factorial as well. Okay. Now in the recursive query part, it references the factorial CTE to calculate the factorial for the next value of n iteratively. Now, here we are increasing the value of n by +1. Also, we are multiplying the number, factorial number with n plus 1 value to compute the factorial of the next n. Now, this where clause, it stops whenever the value of n reaches 5. Now, this anchor query, select 1 as n and 1 as factorial. This is the best case. It initializes the factorial computation for n equal to 1, the first number in the sequence, and factorial equal to 1 for the factorial of 1 is 1. As we know, the factorial of 1 is 1. After this, in the recursive query, what happens is we are writing select n plus 1 and factorial into n plus 1 from the factorial city. So n plus 1, it increments n by 1 to compute the factorial for the next number. And factorial into n plus 1, it multiplies the current factorial value by n plus 1 to compute the factorial for the next number. And the recursion stops when n equal to 5 because of the where clause where we have written n less than 5. So this iteratively calculates the factorial for each n until n is equal to 5. Now union all, it combines the results of the anchor query and recursive query, and it retains all rows, allowing each step of the recursion to contribute to the result set. Now, in this final query, we are retrieving all rows generated by the recursive CTE, and the final output shows the factorial for each value of n from 1 to 5. Okay, this is how it's working. Thank you. This is all for today. Thank you for watching. We are going to look into a few more questions which we can solve using recursive CTE in the next video. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video.